What's up guys, quickly we're going to get into some tips and tricks that'll improve your gameplay and hopefully teach you something that you didn't already know. Let's get right into it. Since many tornado placements need to be very exact, I'm going to start off by giving you guys some tile placements that I'll be often referring to. These first two I refer to as the corner king tower tiles. These two I will be referring to as the inner king tower tiles. And finally, these are the first path tiles. Thank you guys for bearing with me on this. I think it'll be easy to kind of understand as the video goes on, but yeah, just giving these as a frame of reference as I show the tornado placements throughout the video. We'll be starting off some classic Goblin Barrel and minor King Tower activations. So, this is very situational, but if a Goblin Barrel is thrown at your tower in a normal position, the second path tile and one tile down will allow you to activate the King Tower without taking any damage. But make sure to only do this if the Goblin Barrel is unsupported, because otherwise the tower may be tanked for and the final Goblin will get multiple stabs, making it unworth it to be going for a tower activation without any damage in the first place. You're also going to have to adjust your tornado to the first path tile to activate King Tower if the Goblin Barrel is thrown off center. It's widely believed that the anti-tornado miner location is the top outside corners of each tower. This is actually false. If you pull the miner after he is swung one time, not before or after, to the tile diagonal of the King Tower corner tile, you can activate King Tower every time. As always, you really only want to do this when it's a small push with miner or when the miner is completely unsupported. Otherwise, you run the risk of taking a lot of damage from support troops. And then this placement also holds true for when the miner is placed in front of the tower a little bit more, even by one tile. But if the miner is placed one tile below the so-called anti-miner tornado spot, then the new tornado spot is actually the second path tile, and you'll just have to wait and see and adjust based on where the miner comes up. You do have enough time to make that decision. Finally, I didn't really seem to be able to pull the miner using that same placement when he was placed even farther than normal. I'm not sure if that's repeatable as I didn't test it too often, but perhaps that's the only way you can avoid tornado if your opponent is very good at it. Finally, if you're using a pump tornado deck, you can actually use the second path tile and one down to activate your King Tower versus miner without taking a single hit, no matter where they place their miner to attack your pump. You just do this by preemptively playing it before he pops up. Next up is the ever so threatening Loon. You have to be really careful not to take any hits when activating the King Tower on this one, but it's not too hard. You need to take out the Ice Golem when they go with pushes, and then you use the inner King Tile and 2-up to activate the King Tower against Balloon. But this, however, only works when the Balloon is played directly on the bridge, not to the side. However, if you are using an Ice Spirit tornado deck, then it is very possible to activate the King Tower on a balloon no matter where it is placed. You just Ice Spirit the balloon and then you pull it in with Tornado. In this example, it was actually relatively close to getting a hit on my Crown Tower. So what you really need to focus on is not so much the placement of the tornado, but the Ice Spirit freezing it right before it gets to the tower, and then any tornado placement really will activate it from then on out. You would think Lava Hound would actually make this extremely difficult, but as long as you have air defense to help take out the balloon and the Lava Hound, this is very doable. All you have to do, once again, is time your Ice Spirit very well, get it to freeze the balloon right before it gets there, and make sure you only tornado the balloon and not the Lava Hound. Once again, the placement doesn't matter too much. You just got to make sure you land that Ice Spirit, and then you have to have air defense to take out the Hound. In this example, I don't because I'm cycling fast. But in others, you will have air defense, and it should be a fairly feasible defensive maneuver. Moving on to Graveyard, this one can be somewhat complicated if you're not used to it. So usually it's going to be a tank plus Graveyard. You want to make sure you first play like a mini tank or something that can help kill skeletons inside the Graveyard. Then you want to place your tornado not on the first path tile, but one more to the right inside the King Tower. And then you want to zap or log the remaining skeletons to take the least amount of damage possible and to probably secure your victory against Graveyard, because it's terrible when King Tower is activated. There is, however, a very good counter to this as a Graveyard player. All you have to do is recognize that your opponent is running a tornado deck and then play your Graveyard one tile closer to the river than normal, and this will ensure that RNG is in your favor and you are very likely to not have the King Tower activated because your skeletons just aren't close enough to not die from tornado unless you get extremely unlucky. First non-tornado tip here. So we're going to split the Goblin Gang, the majority of the Goblin Gang on the opposite side in the middle against the MK. Use the placement I've shown. It's kind of hard to No, I just memorized it. And if properly split like this, right before the MK is about to initiate his dash on the tower, it will take very little additional help to fully counter him by pulling him into the middle. Once again, we're using that juicy Ice Spirit to pull the MK into the middle, freeze him, and activate the King Tower, as you may have sensed a trend here. Next up, we really don't see enough of this with the princes being so popular. Ice Spirit and the Tornado Cannon combination, even Ice Golem, and then of course upcoming Skeletons versus Prince are very good versus these two cards, and they're often left alone. So you should really get a King Tower activation off them if at all possible, as shown here. Just covering my vases versus Hog now. So everyone knows you can activate the King Tower with Hog, but you can actually Ice Spirit it always to reject any damage, and this is nice. Just, you know, taking one less hit can help in the long run. And make sure you use the normal Hog placement. Mine was more likely to miss there. You don't have to do that. And if the Hog is ever placed in the middle of the bridge or like in the middle of the arena, you can use the old Hog placement, the third tile up from the inner King Tower tile, to activate the tower. And then versus Pump, you can also pull it in. If it's on the opposite side, it can't be on the same side as the Pump. You can use this tile to give the King Tower a shock. Oh, I'm cheesy. Oh no. Using a spot one tile higher than the old Hog activation spot, you can actually pull a full HP Night Witch to the King Tower with taking very small damage only from the bats. But make sure if she has taken a little bit of damage to go one lower in that tile perhaps, or to not tornado her at all. This is actually extremely useful. Against 3 Musk, you really want to pay attention and save your tornadoes so you can pull them onto one lane. This is how you do it when they've crossed the King Tower, but I prefer to do it at the back. This takes a little bit faster reaction time. You have to see what side the 1 Musk is on and then pull it to the 2 Musk. But this is better because Ice Golem and Elixir Pump are less likely to block the Musketeers from making it all to the same side. There is, however, an exception. If the 2 Musketeers are targeting something, they are more susceptible to being pulled, and you can actually pull them into the 1 Musk lane if that is more desirable for your game plan. Magic Arch is probably the second best, most fun King Tower activation. You just pull him up to the river as fast as possible, very top, and then you can use any troop to get him to shoot at the King Tower and activate it. Finally, the cure to your over-leveled issues, the hard counter to the Elite Barbarians, the Ice Spirit plus Tornado combo. This can actually be really finicky. You need to be really careful with it, but ultimately if you hit both Ice Spirits and get the Tornado, you usually take 1 hit at the most.
Take that, you level 13 monstrosity.
Okay, so we're moving on from Tornado. If you use your Bandit against Dark Prince or Prince, she actually can dash, and if you get the timing right, against Prince she even survives and counter pushes. She's very good on defense against them because of this mechanic. Little girl with very muscular leg beats up horse with medieval weapons. Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of the same, so that was my description. You're welcome. Ever use Expo and run into those meddling tanks? Well, offset your Expo as you should, and if they ever put their tanks in the opposite lane trying to create a push in that lane, you can log the edge of that tank and push it out of the Expo's range, likely winning you the game and allowing you to lock onto the tower. You can actually fully deny a furnace if you're really careful with your poison and only catch the second fire spirit of the first wave. This allows the poison to persist throughout the furnace's duration, knocking down its health and knocking down 1 fire spirit in each wave and allowing your tower to finish them off. And finally, the last wave only spawns 1 fire spirit. So you get a 4-4-4 trade, an even trade, but you also get a lot of damage on their tower, 216 to be exact. So this is a move I only recommend to end games, but you can actually use a miner. It needs to be closer to the tower like this, and you can pull the P.E.K.K.A to the opposite side. So this would be useful in Giant and Golem decks to end games, because you temporarily get a 4 elixir lead, but then you can get screwed on the counter push. So just make sure that you're using it in the right situation to end games, to get that P.E.K.K.A out of the way, and to assure they don't have a hard counter to your win condition. Going back to the good old furnace, if you're ever against someone else that is also using furnace, that may not be very common in these days, but it's good knowledge to have. Play your furnace right as their fire spirit is about to reach the tower, and then your fire spirit will spawn fire spirits that kill their fire spirits and attack their furnace and make them cry. This is very niche, but it makes me feel fancy telling you. So if you're playing like Hog Cycle, you can use a Musketeer opposite lane and use an Ice Golem to distract the bowler, and then for one hit, and then it can go opposite lane. Musketeer has long range, so it can go opposite lane, and then that's just great. You got a good old counter push going. Their bowler's dead, and yeah, that's the tip. Yep. So this one's a little cooler. If you want your Sparky to counter push the opposite lane after dealing with the tank push, she only has to get off 2 hits and she'll actually push herself into the opposite lane. If this isn't what you want, make sure you don't place her in the middle, of course. We all know about those sick, nasty prediction fireballs, but it is actually possible if you know there are 3 Musketeers in the cycle and they're about to play it, to reactively play your fireball. So what you do is you just hold your fireball and you hover it over where you think it is, and then of course you just need to make sure it's on them, and then you can hit them even as late as I did in this replay. If placed in the path of a hog quickly enough, a mini P.E.K.K.A. and a mama P.E.K.K.A. can both destroy a hog without allowing it to get a single hit on your tower. So I actually really love Magic Archer, and in like this part of the video I'm gonna show some clips of him that are theoretical but also very practical. He should be used defensively and on counter pushes early in the game, but I think it's really important to note that he is, beyond a doubt, the best troop finisher in the game that isn't just like a straight up win condition. Like, the card has defensive value, but at the end of games, you should be taking negative elixir trades to just absolutely decimate their tower and to end the game like as soon as it hits overtime or as soon as you're in overtime, because if you protect him at the bridge, I mean, it's like a princess in some ways, except better. You can get so much chip damage, as you can see in these clips, and that is absolutely how he should be used to end games, and it feels amazing. Just his tower taking ability is what makes him good, because obviously his damage isn't that great, and I don't even think Tornado pairs well with him because he has AoE damage. It pairs well with him because it makes him so easy to shoot the tower from across the river. And he can also target the building from the middle. So really focus on using him that way with Tornado offensively at the end of games if you do enjoy the card as much as I do.
Take that, you level 13
No.
monstrosity.
So, you know when you started playing the other day and you lost to those guys and they BM'd you? You gotta use that anger and say it aggressively.
Okay.
With hatred.
Take that, you level 13 monstrosity.
Okay, that works. What's up, guys? Hope you enjoyed the video, the tips. I hope I showed you something you didn't already know, and if you did happen to know all of it, hopefully I give you a reference point for future practices where you're trying to get every single one of these techniques down. And yeah, so see these 12 wins. But yeah, and make sure in the comments to let my mother know that she did a great job. Her contributions made this video what it was. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you learned something once again. Hope you can reference this video in the future, and like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. But of course, let me know if you guys like this type of video. I obviously don't have the time to edit this heavily all the time, but as new things arise, I like to showcase them, and if you guys enjoyed it, I will try to do it once again. So thanks for watching again, and peace. I didn't get that. Oh.